Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, the elder who dreamed of freedom. Roots in the hills of Gatundu. In the late 19th century, when the sun set gently over the ridges of central Kenya, a child was born to the Kikuyu community. His name was Kamau Wanjenji, though the world would one day know him as Jomo Kenyatta. He grew up surrounded by the traditions of his people, rituals by the Magumo tree, tales of Gikuyu and Mumbai, and the rhythms of life tied to the land. From his elders, he learned the sacredness of soil and cattle, for among the Kikuyu, land was not just property, it was life, inheritance, and identity. But Kamau's world was changing. Europeans had arrived, building railways, claiming fertile land, and reshaping lives with foreign laws. As he herded goats and fetched water from rivers, young Kamau heard whispers of displacement, of Africans being pushed from ancestral soil. Seeds of resistance were planted in him, though he did not yet know how far they would grow. Encounter with the missionaries. As a boy, Kamau suffered a painful attack of jiggers that nearly crippled his feet. Seeking relief, he found his way to the Church of Scotland mission at Dogotu. There, his wounds were treated, and for the first time he encountered Western medicine, Christianity, and formal education. At the mission school, he learned to read and write, and he took the name Johnstone Kamau. Yet while he embraced literacy and carpentry, he did not abandon his roots. Even as he recited Bible verses, he still cherished Kikuyu traditions, bridging two worlds, the African and the European. This ability to move between traditions would later define his life as a leader, rooted in his people, yet able to engage the wider world. Journey beyond Kenya. In the 1920s, restless and curious, Kamau sought greater knowledge. He traveled first to Nairobi, then to Europe, a bold step for an African at the time. In London, he joined political circles, attended conferences, and spoke passionately about the plight of Africans under colonial rule. At the London School of Economics, he studied under the anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski. There, he wrote his famous book, Facing Mount Kenya, 1938, A Defense of Kikuyu Traditions. The book shocked European readers, for it declared that African customs were not backward but deeply structured, moral, and wise. He also became involved with Pan-Africanists, people like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and George Padmore of the Caribbean, who believed Africa must free itself from colonial rule. Kenyatta's voice joined theirs, calling for dignity, land, and self-rule. Returned to a land in chains. When Kenyatta returned to Kenya, he found his homeland restless. Europeans had seized vast fertile lands, forcing Africans into crowded reserves. The colonial government imposed taxes and laws that forced Africans to labor on settler farms. Kenyatta rose to leadership in the Kenya African Union, KAU. He spoke in marketplaces and gatherings, reminding Kenyans that freedom was their birthright. His speeches were fiery yet wise, urging unity across tribes. But the colonial government saw him as a threat. They watched him closely, waiting for the moment to silence his growing influence. The Mau Mau and the trial of Kapunguria. In the early 1950s, frustration erupted into the Mau Mau uprising. Fighters took to the forest, swearing oaths and waging guerrilla war against the British. Though evidence directly linking Kenyatta to Mau Mau was weak, the colonial authorities branded him its leader. In 1952, Kenyatta and 5 other nationalists, later known as the Kapunguria Six, were arrested. The trial was a spectacle. Kenyatta, calm and dignified, denied leading Mau Mau, but the colonial court was determined to make an example of him. He was sentenced to 7 years of hard labor, followed by detention. For Kenyans, his imprisonment transformed him into a symbol of resistance. Songs were sung in villages, Uhuru no Kenyatta. Freedom and Kenyatta. His very absence gave strength to the struggle. Freedom's dawn. In 1961, after years in detention, Kenyatta was finally released. By then, the call for independence was unstoppable. Britain, exhausted by wars of decolonization elsewhere, began negotiating Kenya's freedom. On December 12, 1963, under the Nairobi sky lit by fireworks, the Union Jack was lowered, and the Kenyan flag was raised. Tears rolled down cheeks as people shouted, Uhuru. Freedom. Kenyatta stood tall, now Prime Minister, soon to be the first President of the Republic of Kenya. His words were measured, carrying the weight of history. Our children will learn about the heroes of Kenya. Let them learn the truth, that this was a hard-won struggle. The era of Harambee. As President, Kenyatta called for Harambee, pulling together. He urged Kenyans to build schools, roads, and hospitals through collective effort. Communities came together to raise funds, brick by brick, for development. Under his leadership, Kenya remained relatively stable compared to many African nations. Nairobi grew into a thriving city, attracting investors, diplomats, and thinkers. But his rule was not without shadows. Land redistribution was slow and uneven, and many of the poor felt betrayed when elites acquired vast estates. Political opposition was often silenced, and critics accused him of favoring his own Kikuyu community. Still, for millions, Kenyatta remained the elder who kept the nation united during its fragile early years. The elder's last days. By the late 1970s, Kenyatta was an old man, his beard white, his movements slower, but his presence still commanding. He spent time in Mombasa, often gazing at the sea, perhaps reflecting on the long journey from a barefoot boy in Gatundu to the father of a nation. On August 22, 1978, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta passed away peacefully in Mombasa. The news spread like wildfire. Kenya wept. Thousands lined the streets of Nairobi to witness his funeral. Foreign dignitaries from across the world came to honor him. He was buried in a mausoleum beside Parliament, where his memory still lingers. Legacy of the elder. Kenyatta left behind a mixed but powerful legacy. To some, he was a father figure who guided Kenya with wisdom, keeping the nation from tearing apart. To others, he was a leader who fell short on promises of equality. But all agreed, without him, Kenya's journey to freedom would have been far longer, far darker. He remains Mzee, the elder who carried Kenya across the bridge of history. His name is etched in schools, streets, currency, and in the hearts of those who remember the cry of independence, Uhuru no Kenyatta.